figured that night we went after the last township meeting. Bruce says he gave a receipt to Joe. Joe says he gave it to me. I know I never saw it. So I have to find out, like, they wrote a check. So I have to find out from H exactly how much it was and getting that receipt from her. I will do it. I have to find out from H. It had to clear the bank. The check had to clear the bank, so it could see
Selling a protein bar.
how much it was.
Cool.
Yeah, it's one of the clients.
Yeah, it's neat.
We happen to be talking about it. Apparently she really likes them.
Every morning, that's my breakfast.
Is that what you have?
Not that one.
No.
Go-to meeting.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, he told me so.
Is it running?
I was in Atlantic City, I don't have time. I was at a conference yesterday and today.
I'm so disappointed.
We have a clip-on for you.
Very.
Say August.
It's not August. Yeah, there's a lot of water.
Yeah, no tie July?
It is a special meeting, come on, guys.
No, it's a regular one.
No, it's an additional
Put
meeting.
on the agenda as a regular one, so we wouldn't have to advertise this special.
Oh.
So go get your tie.
All right, in that case, where's the time?
No, it's just
The machined board.
There we go. That was weird.
Wait, I'm plugging.
Want it in the middle?
Yeah, right in the middle.
I'm gonna let this
You
go.
just drop it, yeah. Thank you so much.
I don't have anyone on, but just in case somebody wants to pop on.
This is wireless?
Yep.
Okay. How about that?
Okay.
Ah,
This meeting is called pursuant to the provisions of the Open Public Meetings Law. This meeting of January 30th, 2024, with instructions for internet access, was included in a meeting notice sent to the Burlington County Times, the Courier Post on January 4th, 2024, and advertised in said newspapers on January 7th, 2024, and January 11th, 2024. Respectively posted on the website and the bulletin board in the municipal building on January 4th, 2024, and has remained continuously posted as required under the statute. In addition, a copy of this notice is and has been available to the public and is on file in the office of the municipal clerk. Would you please rise for the flag salute? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Mayor Gilmore,
Here.
Mr. Montgomery,
Here.
Mr. Klaus, Mrs. Evans,
Here.
Mrs. Torty.
Here.
Minutes. Can I have approval of the reorg meeting minutes of January 2nd, 2024?
So moved?
Second?
Mr. Montgomery?
Yes.
Mrs. Torty?
Yes.
Mrs. Evans?
Yes.
Mayor Gilmore?
Yes. I can do the two together. Approval of the regular committee minutes of January 2, 2024, and the executive session minutes of January 2, 2024. Can I have a motion and a second?
So moved?
Second?
Mrs. Torty?
Yes.
Mr. Montgomery?
Yes.
Mrs. Evans?
Yes.
Mayor Gilmore?
Yes. Reports. I see Sergeant Antonucci here. Would you like to give your report?
Sure.
Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Nothing major to report. However, we did have an issue over the weekend at the Tavern and Table Bar. There was a bar fight, and then I guess it spilled out into the parking lot, and somebody, shots were fired in the air. Nobody was injured. Our detectives and troopers are conducting further investigation and to identify the suspects and charge them accordingly. We'll do extra patrols of the area and assist staff with dispersing the crowds at closing time. But that's all Sam.
Has there anyone been charged at this point?
No, not yet.
Still
It's
going
under
on?
investigation.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sergeant, do you know what time that occurred?
It was early Sunday morning, so around, I think,
Closing time?
closing time.
Okay. Thank you.
That's the time. Okay, the other reports we have are the fire official, emergency services reports. Can I get a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Second?
Mrs. Evans?
Yes.
Mr. Montgomery?
Yes.
Mrs. Torty?
Yes.
Mayor Gilmore?
Yes. Okay, so we have a discussion and a presentation. Mr. Taylor, is that you by any chance?
Actually,
No? We're going to discuss it all first? We're ready to see the pictures.
I do hide it, that way they can hear me talk for a few minutes.
Okay. Okay.
let me see here. Somebody just joined.
Get
Okay,
ready.
good. They muted themselves. Okay. First, before we get into the presentation, I do have a request to amend the agenda.
Okay.
To add a resolution, just so I don't forget to add this resolution, a very, very important resolution that I failed to add to the agenda, which is related to this Green Acres grant. If this said resolution is not put on the agenda and you guys support this, we would not be able to move forward on the grant without it. So
Then let's
my
make that
apologies.
part.
So I do make a request to amend the agenda to add Resolution 2024-45-1, authorizing the application and execution of grant agreement with the New Jersey DEP Green Acres Local Government Development Program, and that's just simply to add the resolution to the agenda.
So I'd like to make a motion that we add the resolution.
And I'll second that.
Thank you.
Can we do an all in favor? Or do we have to-
Aye.
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 Thank you. All right.
Okay.
Great. All right. So, we are so excited to present this to everyone. It's been a long time coming, since 2017, actually. The township purchased the Creek Turn Ceramics Supply Company. The Kleiner family operated a ceramics mill on this portion of the property, the main portion of the property, from the late 1930s until the 1990s. The properties that the township purchased, Block 99, Lot 9, which is a little over 2 acres, and it's across the street, Route 38 westbound, between Bear Automotive and the Rancocas Creek. But the main parcels are on the eastbound side of Route 38, and that is Block 100, lots 9 through 13. It's a little over 24 acres. So that is the subject area that we are discussing. Scott's going to go into more detail. Actually, it is up on the easel now. So the town bonded a little under $600,000 for this purchase, using both local open space tax dollars as well as general capital funds. It quickly paid off the bond in 2022. We retained an LSRP in 2018 to perform various environmental services associated with the sites, including a wetlands delineation, some DEP notifications as required, document review, preliminary assessment, and a site investigation. Again, so we utilized tax dollars, so approximately $60,000 of the acquisition cost was local tax dollar funded. As such, it was and remains the intent of leadership to create a passive local park, as such, so 60% of it, using the open space funds. The plan also calls to carve out about a 4-acre portion in the front along Route 38 for commercial. This is consistent with the town's master plan. It promotes the goal of commercial development along the Route 38 corridor. Additionally, future commercial development will help to offset some of the acquisition cost of what is now Creek Turn Park. In addition to the Green Acres Park Development Grant application that we're here before you today for approval, We also received a $22,000 grant from DEP, the HDSRF money that we've been applying for the Paul's Tank Farm site as well as the Hitco site, to do another preliminary investigation or preliminary assessment and site investigation. So we are committed to continue applying for grants, as well as utilizing capital funding and the open space tax to continue the efforts through various phases to improve and build a beautiful park for the Hainesport community. So I'm going to hand it over to Scott now, kind of set the stage for his presentation.
Drum roll, please.
Thank you, Paul.
As Paula indicated, and there are a couple of things that we sort of have to do as part of this public hearing in terms of identifying the property and talking about some of the characteristics of the parcel itself. Can you guys hear me? Can you pick me up?
Tara, if you want to point the, yeah, kind of
Just
there we go.
be much louder. Is that good enough? Can you hear me? So as Paula indicated, the property that's actually known as Creek Turn Park is a 24.3 acre parcel. It is known as Block 100, lots 9 through 13. It is, the property is shown, and I'm referring to sheet C1, which is an aerial location map prepared by our office dated January 30, 2024. And you can see on the left-hand side of the exhibit, we have Bancroft Lane, we have Morton Place, Route 38 across the top, the Rancocas Creek to the east, and the property itself is bounded by the creek, and then these property lines that wrap around an office, a law office building here.
Scott, I'm sorry, can I, I'm just looking at the Rancocas Creek, like the bottom, oh, right there, go down. Are those like wetlands there? Is that all water right there? So it's still part of the creek?
Marshland.
Okay, so not buildable, not, that's
Not buildable.
Right.
This is all totally protected.
Good.
That would be, flood-prone areas.
what I thought. Okay, very good, thank you. Sorry for the interruption.
No, quite all right. So the property in the area of the old creek turn facility, that's at about elevation 40. The creek itself is about elevation 4 or 5. So we have 36 feet of grade change, which is what makes this probably one of the most spectacular views in the entire county. When the home site was selected, as we all know, the Rancocas is a very, very curvy creek through a majority of its distance. We have a very unique long view and long vista of straight from this location, which is why the house was put where it was previously. When you go out there, it is dramatic what you're able to see from there. So the property does actually slope generally from west to east and obviously down toward the creek. As Paula indicated, we have a letter of interpretation or an LOI that assigns buffers or transition areas to those wetlands that are generally, and they're shown, but it's very light gray. Those wetlands are state open waters along the Rancocas Creek. That has a 0-foot buffer or transition area for majority of it because there's no wetland vegetation. It's sort of woodland directly down. We do have some exceptional resource value wetlands in this area that has a 150-foot transition area. So anything that we do moving forward, we will have to apply for a variety of DEP permits, including general permits for trails and boardwalks that may be partially located within those wetlands or wetland transition areas. Those will likely be a soft surface material while still providing handicap accessibility, and I'll talk a little bit about that when I get into the design. And for reference, north is straight up on the map here, and Route 38 generally goes east-west. So, Paul, I'm making sure I click off all of our required.
I know, so there are certain things we have to
Right.
talk about.
All of our elements. One of the things that is a major element as part of the Green Acres application relates to tree clearing. We have, everything we've designed has been done to minimize tree clearing on the site. We know that there will need to be tree removals. A majority of those are actually growing in and around the existing wall structures. As Paul indicated, the property was purchased in 2017. One of the great things about this parcel is we have some impervious already built in, so we're not gonna have to do a lot from a stormwater management standpoint because we'll actually be reducing that amount of runoff. The downside is we do have a pretty significant demolition cost associated with a lot of that concrete and the walls and some of the building walls and some of the infrastructure to go through that process. Nonetheless, we are showing actually some bioretention and some stormwater management runoff mitigation and some habitat as part of the concept that we'll get to in a second. As we all know, the Raincoat is tidal in this location. We may have coastal general permits that we have to go for as well. A lot of the permits will be the results of a pre-application meeting with the DEP and what they're ultimately going to require. Some facilities can be shifted a few feet, sometimes raised, to minimize the number of those permits that are necessary. We do have flood-prone areas in the lower portions of the site. Obviously, we're where the major improvements are and where the old creek turn pottery site was, sits 35 feet. That has never been an issue. I believe the flood elevation is 12 or 13. So everything we're doing, aside from some of the trails that are down low because we want to get some creekside access, is going to be well above that. So in terms of going through all right, now I can talk about that. I think I touched on all those. The site is currently accessed, we'll talk about two more things. There's currently an existing driveway apron that accesses the site that is shared with that law office to the west, and that's located here. There's then a gravel natural surface drive that brings us back into the site. As many of you know, the site is sort of an interesting patchwork of concrete panels that was used as part of the storage. We're going to be embracing some of that as well as the troll that's out there that you'll see a little bit when we get into the design. As you also know, directly to the,
Good idea first.
first the tie, now the
One more, three's a charm.
10 works. Directly to the west, between the site and Bancroft Lane, there is an approved senior, age-restricted, single-family development. As the town may know, as part of that joint land use board application, the board required two things. One was an easement to provide pedestrian access from that internal roadway system into this property, but more importantly, a driveway access so that members of the community don't have to get out onto Route 38 every time to access this property. It can be done directly from Bancroft Lane, trying to reduce the number of unnecessary traffic movements at Bancroft and 38, which we know is a burden intersection.
So it would be a walkway, Scott, then, pedestrian, from the development to the new site, not a road.
Well, there will be two. So there will be,
I understand the one to Bancroft, but the one from the development, the senior development, I mean, can cars come from the senior development?
yes, so that senior development has a road system
Right,
like this.
right.
Off of that road is what will be the future driveway access into the site
Okay,
directly from that public.
Okay,
road,
okay.
Which is within that community.
Okay.
It's still will be a municipal roadway.
okay,
So that will have vehicular access, but also will provide pedestrian and bike access here. And then secondarily, there's another pedestrian access further to the south.
and then there's another road from 38.
Yeah.
So there's one in and one out then, I guess, right? Okay,
That
okay,
final configuration in a future phase right now, for phase one, you'll see, we're just planning to use the existing Route 38 access, especially because we don't know when construction and when that subdivision will be perfected for the lands to be then transferred and the roadway to be constructed.
Right.
So that would have to happen first. So that driveway access see that this is an inset of the Route 38. So this little inset actually would be about 2 feet off the page. Coming in with an entrance sign and driveway apron here. Utilizing this existing drive, we're showing an entry gate so the park can be closed, so it's open from dusk until, from
Dawn to dusk.
That can be closed off. And then coming in, we're currently showing a regrading and stone to stabilize that driveway and to reduce long-term maintenance. The existing concrete is going to be reused for the parking. We will be saw cutting and striping lines in there. We will create a new area of concrete that's flat for handicap accessibility in this location here. That then connects into a variety of walkways, almost all of which are accessible throughout the park. As you come into the parking lot, we're removing all the concrete, all of those walls in those areas, and converting that, the majority of that to green space. Some of that will be lawn, and we're showing some sculptural mounds in the foreground here to create some interest. And also, as you come in, you'll catch glimpses of the troll sculpture, and then it will be slightly obscured by some of the mounds, and as you move through that space, it'll close in and open up and create a very artistic setting for that. We're also showing an open lawn area that has a picnic pavilion and a deck overlook with a round circular path system. What we anticipate, this is generally in the location of the prior house. That really affords the most dramatic views, that long view down. So we're actually calling this long view pavilion and long view overlook. This deck here will have a spectacular view. What we envision doing, we looked at trying, this is one of the things that came up, we had stakeholder meetings in 2019 and again in fall, early winter of 23. When we started looking at some of those walls that were out there, to try to embrace those and make those code-compliant conditions to create an outdoor classroom or amphitheater, the cost would have been exorbitant. And then what we would have had was an unnecessarily large amphitheater in a spot where you can't really see the creek and it's sort of on the backside of the site. So what we thought was a better solution was in this open lawn area to gently slope it and raise it in the rear so that when you're sitting there, it has maybe only a foot or 2 feet of fall, but you can have somebody in, if you have 15 people, everybody can be under the pavilion, and whether that's a wedding ceremony or an outdoor education, it can function as a classroom. Larger events, you could actually have people spill out into that area, and because of it being gently raised, everybody will still have visibility under the pavilion of what's going on there. That pavilion connects into this large ellipse walkway that is handicap accessible. We're showing meadow in and around the buildings and the troll sculpture, which is shown here. The large buildings will be demolished, the one fully to the rear, preserving that section in the middle that the troll is leaning up against. And then the sort of southern section will also be demolished and enhancements made for that to be a safe condition for the public to access. Where the troll sits currently, because of some of the uneven surfacing, we would bring in a stabilized stone screenings to create a handicap accessible, firm, stable, slip-resistant surface consistent with the New Jersey Barrier Free Subcode. That same material will be used for a majority of the loop trails. That compacted, stabilized stone meets the Barrier Free Subcode. DEP likes it because it does allow for some percolation throughout the site. So in terms of the main, actually I'll stay on this sort of upper terrace here. Going around this ellipse, we have benches shown in a couple of locations. We are showing The law not required, we think it's the right thing to do to help with water quality within the creek. That pollinator restoration happens pretty much everywhere where we're going to be removing concrete, with the exception of a small long panel directly adjacent to the parking lot. When we come to the backside, one of the things we were looking at, the large building, that sidewalk slopes off excessively towards what we call the precipice and the stakeholder meeting. That would have to be completely reconstructed to be accessible. And because of the size of that slab and that structure, and because we're building a pavilion here, we think it's a better solution and more cost-effective to remove that larger building that is shown. Actually, this entire area here. And you can see that almost equates to half the size of the parking lot. It really is an enormous, enormous building. So we think by preserving that main core of the building where Big Rusty is leaning on currently, it'll be a lot more cost effective. The other thing we can do is we can pull that sidewalk, that ellipse sidewalk, 25, 30 feet back from that edge of the roadway, or from that edge of the drop off there, to provide a much safer pedestrian connection as we wrap around through there. We're showing some picnic tables scattered in some lawn areas, accessible routes to them. We're showing an upper woodland trail of that stabilized stone material. We're also showing an accessible trail that wraps around the site, comes through the woods, and down to the existing, there's a small gravel or pebble beach there. We want to get handicap accessibility down to that. We're showing a bench and a small section of boardwalk because it does get a little soft and a little spongy the closer you get to that. The intent here is really not a kayak launch for a couple reasons. It's more of a kayak tie-up where somebody who launches either upstream or downstream, this can be a great stop-off point. Part of the challenge we have is that 36 to 40 foot grade change requires us to have about a 700 foot walkway to be accessible to get down to here. That really doesn't provide a great opportunity for somebody to portage a boat to get from the parking lot to get all the way down there. It really wouldn't be practical to try to get cars down there either. So we're handling this as more of a boat pull-up, and it was something we did discuss at some of the stakeholder meetings as well.
But somebody with an inflatable could probably manage it.
Somebody, I don't think we would necessarily want to restrict it, that if somebody wants to throw their kayak on their shoulder, or they have an inflatable, and they want to do the loop and walk down there, I think it's fine. It's just we're not providing access and parking within 30 to 50 or 75 feet. It is about, I think, 700 or 800 feet. By doing this loop walk, it creates a really nice kind of woodland walk through that. It also allows us to wind that through the existing topography and vegetation to work with the grade to minimize the tree removals, which is a key component of the Green Acres grant. Secondarily, by staying at 5%, we don't have to put switchbacks and handrails in. Those handrails become tremendously expensive. They also, they can get vandalized when they're frankly in sort of a remote area between skaters or anything else. So the more that we can keep this natural, and it also becomes a little bit, it can be visually intrusive in the landscape to have those switchback handicap ramps through there. So making that connection down here to the Pebble Beach, we are connecting, making a connection here. Again, a number of loop trails that connect through the site. And that's sort of the overview of the phase one, which is the subject of the grant application. There are, in phase two, or I should say future phases, we do a couple things. Now this plan is a little bit smaller, so we can show some more context and the scale is different. But where this tie-up is, we're actually connecting this loop trail with some stairs up to this Longview Pavilion and Longview Overlook area. So that dash, there were some comments about potentially creating a pathway connection or a formalized pathway connection to the adjacent Lakeside Creekside HOA lands. So we are showing that connecting in here. That obviously is something that they, as an entity, would need to embrace and want to connect from their side, connect into here. But, so we're showing that in that location. And then the other dashed line here, again, which is a little bit difficult to read from that distance, is connecting into the senior development. We are showing this lot to be dedicated to the township for access, and this is where that other driveway would come in, and that would connect to Bancroft Lane. We're also showing sort of a realignment and a paving in time of that driveway and of that parking area, because we realize that that concrete probably works very well as a phase one. It is a little bit of an uneven surface, but potentially long-term, to create a more plowable surface, a safer, flatter surface, we think would work much better in the long term. Some of those design features that we were anticipating, in the top left, you can see the existing photo of Big Rusty. We wanted to try to play off of some of the history of the site, so we're showing, if you look at the concept for the sign, that's a material called Corten or weathering steel. On the parkway, you'll see guide rails made out of this. It's stable, but it has a rusted look. So we've been playing off of that rusted feel of Big Rusty to use that as a design feature that would work well for the entry sign. There are also roofing materials that can be used on the pavilions and in other features.
Just for the record, you're referring to an exhibit called Concept Support Graphics?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
Sheet C4, thank you. And before that, I was referring to sheet C2 and C3, which were the phase one and the future phase sketches. But playing off of that rusted material feel, trying to tie that into some of the other signage features, the meadow signage, showing examples of picnic pavilion, portable toilet enclosure, which is located just off the parking lot in phase one. And then we're also showing some boardwalks, some site amenities, the deck overlooks, as well as an example of what those lawn mounds might look like, some of the plantings and some of the other design features, furnishings, and amenities to make this a spectacular, passive, resource-related park for generations to come.
That stairway that you're in the future phase, is that the existing, ties into where that existing little stair,
It's
in that,
close in that
that
general
neighborhood?
area. Those are so far from being code compliant.
Oh, God.
Or safe.
Yeah.
But what we will do is we went, there's really no way to get an accessible connection from down here up to this upper area. It gets, this whole section in here becomes very, very steep. So without a lot of
Right.
walls and tree removals, and quite frankly, I walked that, and it is nice for a little while, but as soon as you get back up onto the top of that bluff, you realize this is actually the best spot on the site. It's a little less desirable being close. It's fine to get close to the water once, but being halfway, it's not that great. But I think long-term, making that connection so folks can do a loop.
Isn't that also where the pilings were? Like, it looked like there might have been a dock there or something at one point in time?
The stabilizing tires, isn't that all where those are?
There are a handful of other things that in future phases, and depending on other money that becomes available to clean up, potentially some living shoreline or some habitat enhancement. There are some tires at the shoreline that look like they were used and stacked very strategically to stabilize the shore.
Oh, interesting.
And I will say rather effectively. So none of our proposed improvements are anywhere near that, but one of the things that we did talk about was the potential to look for funds down the road of whether or not we could do something that may be an even better solution for that for the next 50 years or 100 years.
How does that look?
A majority of it is covered by leaves and other material, but you can see some of it exposed.
Okay. But it's not, but at this point now, you're thinking it's better to leave it than to disturb it because it's effectively protecting the erosion and the foundation,
Shoreline
yeah.
is relatively stable.
Yeah, okay.
The
Okay.
trees are all solid there and nothing, when those shorelines start to erode, you see a lot of deadfalls. You see trees that are falling into the creek. I'm really not seeing that. there.
Right,
So trying to judiciously go in, it can also get very, very expensive
yeah,
to try to do those projects. So if funding becomes available, that can be addressed in a future phase.
gotcha. We have questions, or we, time?
You can
Okay.
ask a question.
Lawn mounds. Mayor Gilmore and I were laughing at the lawn mounds, but you explained basically that it was kind of strategically placed to make it more of an artistic view of the troll as it came around. So that
He was going to
answered,
go sledding.
that answered our questions. So when I hear a lawn mound, it's not really a hill. What is a mound, help me to understand
So
that.
they would be, and we're sort of showing an example of it here.
Right.
Probably higher. My guess is they may be 4 to 7 feet in height.
Okay,
So it's not
okay.
high enough that you're actually going to sled from.
Yeah,
But
that's
it's the
right.
kind of thing that as you pull in there, instead of, one of the things we try to do with a lot of parks is you create this sequence of spaces. If you can see that one sculpture for 1,000 feet as you're walking toward it, you don't really have to walk the whole way. I've seen it, I don't need to go there.
Right.
But if you get glimpses of it as you're walking, then it actually makes you want to go there. So by sort of foreshortening that view with some of those mounds, we think it'll provide a sculptural element, which part of the things we wanted to embrace was the potential for the ellipse and some of the other walkways. Maybe there is additional artwork or sculptural features or some other elements that could be introduced in the future. I think these mounds would create sort of a nice entree into the park for that purpose.
And I think that goes along with his, Dambo's work in other areas, where he likes to make it a job to get to, and you just see a glimpse of the troll
Right,
somewhere.
good point.
So I think it all ties in with his artwork.
One of the other things I didn't mention is we know we have a very large stand of bamboo out there.
Yeah.
But we have a lot of ivy. So in the cost estimate, we have put some money in there to try to eradicate that. The sooner we do that, the less it will cost, the better it will be for the existing trees. We have a lot of existing mature trees out there that are severely declining because of the ivy. They've been completely overtaken. So being able to preserve those trees that we can, we think will be a benefit. And then we will have to remove some of those trees. But I think it would be good to get rid of the bamboo and get rid of the ivy in the first phase.
I just want to say, Scott, I'm really impressed, and I love how you've included all of the stakeholders' views that we heard when we were at the meeting, so I'm really excited to see this happen.
We're very excited. A lot of things I didn't talk about is there are little things like accessible picnic tables and standard picnic tables and benches, litter and recycle receptacles, fishing line recycling receptacles, so the fishing line doesn't blow away or get left somewhere. Dog waste station. So there are a lot of those smaller amenities. We also like to try to do bird houses and bat houses where we do meadow. Provides a visual cue for folks, hey, we didn't just stop mowing, this is actually a meadow. A lot of times we'll do
Right.
meadow habitat signage,
Right.
so that your constituents don't say, why'd you stop mowing? Well, it's actually habitat, we're doing a good thing.
Right, but there is some lawn, it looked like, around the gazebo and around the other, right? And how long, Scott, is the loop? Like, what's the length of the total loop around? Any idea? Just curious.
That's so big.
It's a lot. Looks like a lot to me.
Probably a total, so I think this lower loop
Yeah.
is around 800 feet,
Oh, okay. I thought it was more. Okay.
or 1,100 feet.
Okay. Okay. Interesting. Just curious, that's fine. You're not talking miles here, we're not talking, yeah. So, and how long, so we're talking about, hopefully, and this is something the homeowners association at Creekview and Lakeside will have to decide, is that pathway so that it can tie in that development. So I like the fact that we can tie in other developments and walkways and things of that sort, kind of tie in the different communities. Yeah, and just to echo, this is just so awesome. I'm very excited about it, and we, talked about this for a long time ago, so this is just great. So, and excuse my mundane questions here, because I am excited about it. I think it's awesome, so good job for you. But how long is the pathway that the Creekside Lakeview, how long would that have to be for them to access that? Do you know, roughly? Not exactly.
I would probably say, well, again, depending where they wanted to connect that in.
Yeah.
You see that.
You're talking-
The park is here. This is Cove Court.
Right,
And they're open.
okay. So that's a couple hundred yards then?
So wherever they wanted to put it,
Okay.
probably 500 feet,
Okay,
600 feet.
I
okay.
mean, there's already a trail
Path,
system
yeah.
established.
There are informal.
Informal
Oh,
path.
they're already, yes, they absolutely have been for years accessing the
Yeah,
park.
I've been back there, I've been back there myself,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, right,
And
okay.
they do not have to be, as much as we are striving, almost everything out here is handicap accessible. Under the state of New Jersey, there can be wild and undeveloped trails that are not fully accessible. Obviously, in state parks and where there is significant terrain, you cannot make everything accessible. So that may be, because of the topography, something that is just a natural footpath that is a foot or 2 feet wide. And it could grow from there.
Yeah,
depending on-
because we have other access in there, so
Yes.
for handicap access to be able to do that, so we're covering that.
Plus, we had to jump over
yeah.
a creek, a little bit of the creek to
We also said potential because
Yeah.
for every HOA that says, yes, we definitely want to be able to access that park, the flip side of that coin is somebody will stand up and say, do we want everyone from that park to be able to
Access.
our HOA open space? That can be handled through signage. You're now in,
No trespassing,
only no
right.
trespassing. We know people always follow the rules. Signs.
But for those that do, they may, right, okay,
Not the ones we worry about.
right, right.
Now, this is exciting. It's a lot. It's a give and back.
What's the time frame? So time frame to have it, to do the whole thing, A, and I know that's a tough question, A, and I guess that's B. A,
When do we?
when do we start?
We need to get the money first.
Start tonight by adopting a resolution.
There you go, right, yes,
Right answer.
We then hope that we're successful with the Green Acres application.
Right.
That would be another step. And I don't know if they have an announcement date. It usually takes them a few months. So,
But we would have to wait for that before going out to the DEP to get different permits and stuff?
well, there's 2 ways that you can move on that. If the town thinks, regardless of how much we do or do not get,
right,
this is generally the park that we want.
right,
Design and actual grading design and landscape design and the features and the permitting could start now.
that's my, there, right,
And
okay.
that will help that
Okay.
process, because once we get that design with the grading and showing those things, we then have to have a pre-app with DEP. We then, based on that, may have to tweak a few things and then go in for permits. And that could be a 3 to 6 month process. We do know that we have some, this, along the Rain Cocos, we have bald eagle foraging habitat. So we know that there are things that we will need to be very sensitive about of how we impact things. But we've been successful at developing trails and boardwalks within those wetlands and transition areas at Boundary Creek Park for the county. Also at the Anderson Farm, which is now Rainbow Meadow Park, and also at Pennington Park. So these are not insurmountable, but we will have to go through that process with DEP and alternatives analysis and GP 17 for trails, general permit,
GP 17, sorry.
which is a general permit under the state's. It allows us to put trails and boardwalks within wetlands and transition areas.
General permit for, okay, thank you.
So I do have the review period by DEP. They're hoping to streamline their review process, so they're looking 2 to 3 months after the submission deadline, which is next week, February 7th. So 2 to 3 months. Obviously, the legislative appropriation process, they can't predict the length of time on that, but the project period, once approved, they establish a 2-year project period. So, and I'm sure that they allow for some extensions, but it looks like they want everything to be done in 2 years.
Which for a project of this size and scale is not unrealistic. That 2 years should be sufficient.
Once we get the okay.
Right.
So we're up to over 2 years this.
I'm sure once once they appropriate the funding, I'm sure that's when the 2-year process would start.
So obviously, this is quite an undertaking. A lot of people involved, a lot of financing. What are the odds of our getting this grant? How realistic is it that we,
I have no
what's your
idea.
thought?
I don't know, it depends on, how many applications they receive, their funding priorities. They rank and measure our applications based on various variables.
Sure. Are we checking any of those, or we're checking, I'm sure we're checking some of the boxes, but
Oh, yeah, we're
checking
gonna
enough
check,
where-
we check pretty much
Okay,
all the
good.
boxes here.
Okay.
However, priority funding tends to be in your distressed communities, your urban aid areas, although their funding matches and allocations vary greatly. So we are eligible for a 25% grant, 75% loan. So Green Acres grant is not all 100% grant anywhere. We are eligible for that 25% grant because we are within the
Overburden community.
I don't know if it's overburdened is the right word. There's a different classification. Hold on, it's in here. And then the other 75% is a 2% loan payable over 20 years. And that's standard,
2%.
Right.
2%.
Interest rate, are you
Interest
saying?
rate. You're right, Scott.
That's what I was asking earlier. Okay, good. 2% interest rate payable over.
Yep, it is overburdened.
So not all debt is bad, because the 2% interest rate for 20 years is.
Oh, right.
Yeah, I went in on that. That's
Yeah.
great.
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely, over 20 years. I mean,
Yeah, I
that
wish my
makes
kids'
sense.
student loans were at
Wow,
2%.
isn't that the truth?
I mean, if we were to receive the full $700,000, which is the maximum amount, minimum is $500,000, maximum is $700,000. I don't know what that equates to. It's a $525,000 grant over 20 years. I'm sure our open space tax that we already collect would cover that.
That was the next question, okay.
I didn't do, I apologize, but I didn't do the calculations.
Okay, but you think we're close to that then? Okay,
I mean, we can do the math right now.
well, okay.
Does it, I mean, it doesn't really, I mean,
If you're good enough, if you think, I mean, I don't need an exact figure, I'm just trying to figure out how we're going to come up with all this, and thinking of the taxpayers, and, which includes all of us here, of course.
I thought you
I mean-
making
Yeah.
a donation.
Yeah, was that?
I thought you were making a donation.
I was going to make a donation, yes. Wouldn't that be lovely?
I was going to sell cookies, and Anna was selling.
Let's have lemonade sales and all
So-
kinds of stuff, yeah.
so we have to match this grant, so the committee has already appropriated $250,000 last year.
Yes,
So I will be requesting in this year's budget an additional $500,000
Okay.
in capital funding for this year's budget, so that we would be able to match it. So we do need a public.
That level of match in conjunction with the money that has already been put into the site for purchase and the troll sculpture strengthens this application with DEP. That resource appreciation and outdoor education also ranks highly, and accessibility. So waterfront public access
Right.
is big.
And a cleanup, right, because there is some,
Doing
Yeah.
some site cleanup
Right.
and reducing the impervious and creating that palliative habitat. And we're actually, we have some examples on the board of doing interpretive signage to talk about the site history or the history of the Rancocas Creek or Creek Turn pottery. So telling those stories are all things that the folks at DEP like to see, and we've had pretty good success telling those stories and pretty high success.
I can't speak for everybody up here, but I mean, we like that too. I mean, from a lot of the things that we've talked about and looked at, I mean, that's especially just going through our whole entire 100th year anniversary and just telling the story of Hainesport and how we all got started. So the stories are really, really a part of it, so that's great. Yeah, good, okay, and that's kind of what I was asking. So those are the boxes that we need to check in order to help get this grant. Okay,
So, and Big Rusty's
So
already on
it's-
the radar, so hopefully
yeah,
that gives us a little bit of a nod as well.
okay.
But we do have 2 people on, just to let you know, Mayor Gilmore, we have 2 people online, and we do need to do the public hearing, so
At this point?
whatever. It's part of the process that has to happen.
One thing, so the kayak, to my good friend Bruce and his lovely wife, was part of it, so, and Anna mentioned this too, if you have inflatables, okay, you're gonna walk a little bit, not gonna be convenient to park, but kayakers are pretty adventurous people, so that could kind of work, but they could pull up there. And here's another question, where's Dunleavy's compared to this here?
Over there.
I know it's got to be up top to the right, correct? Because,
Oh, of course again.
yeah, okay, okay.
Yeah, you need to work on Dunleavy's to have a kayak pull-up point.
Well, that's for sale, so
And then a slide back there.
slide back down, there you go, right, that would be much more safe, okay,
Man,
all right,
I'm here for that.
cool.
Okay, so at this point in time, anybody in
Thank
the
you.
room have any comments to make with regards to agenda items only, which this is one? Yes, Ms.
Actually, you need to focus just
Just
on
on
this.
this.
Oh, okay, even though it says,
Yeah, this is just by itself, then you can open this for later. after.
Okay, so do you have a comment on the-
And then close.
he does.
So we need to make a motion, is
No, no,
that?
you're good.
No.
Okay,
And when you're done, if you wouldn't mind coming up and signing this
Okay,
log sheet, we have to submit it with the grant application.
sure.
Thank you.
With the blood.
Bruce Levinson, 2 Fox Court. This is really beautiful. I appreciate everybody's hard work in this, and the stakeholders, I think they've really had a lot of good input, and I see a lot of what they talked about incorporated into the plan. I do have a question about the mounds. With regard to the maintenance of the mounds, it seems like it might be a little bit hard to mow. Was there any thought with regard to the stakeholders or any other input with regard to putting in some maybe low ground level juniper so it doesn't have to be maintained? That's just a thought.
One of the things we would do, the ground cover junipers, if you get one weed in there and the weed gets whole, the whole thing becomes a weedy mess. So they can be, for the first 10 or 15 years, 10 times the amount
Work.
of work to get them established. We wouldn't do anything that's any steeper than a 3-to-1 slope, which is, really an easily mowable slope. You can still mow a 2-to-1 slope, but it starts to get a little difficult. So we would keep everything at 3-to-1, 4-to-1, so it's very easily maintained using standard forces, standard equipment.
And then with regard to the kayaking issue, what do you envision the tie-up to be, and at the level of the creek, if it is a dock of some sort that doesn't float up and down, what's the tide change to, because that would effectively make it easier or harder for somebody to tie up and or get in or out?
So one of the things, that I think that because of this being a tie-up, and there is a pebble beach there,
Yeah.
at a very high tide, the beach will not be visible. So DEP is probably going to dictate the height of that. I think from the town standpoint, keeping that boardwalk and tie-up right to the edge and away from the high water line, as soon as we get into the water itself, we then have to deal with ice flows and then either removing it every fall and putting it back in, or dealing with the structural issues of ice coming through there. So if this is a pebble beach that can be used at mid-tide to low tide, and then there is a boardwalk that can have a tie-up, and it has some cleats on it, people can pull up onto the beach, tie off to a cleat, go hike through the park, and then come back and go out, but not necessarily at the highest tides.
So I've used things like that, and that's a fine idea. That's going to work just great. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Thank you, Bruce.
It's Janice Ludden, 14 Heather Lane. This is great, and I'm excited about the whole thing. Just curious, is there any of the, like, the furnace that was left from the pottery or anything that's going to be included, like with signage or anything like that, that's going to stay, or is it all to,
It is, no, that's actually one of the things that, and I probably should have highlighted on that a little bit more. A couple of the chunks of the building are going to be removed. Those three middle sections and where that kiln furnace is, we've talked from day one at both of the stakeholder meetings, and I should have brought that up specifically, about retaining that, and then making those buildings sort of cleaned up and a little bit safer in
okay,
there.
yeah,
Improving those stairs or closing that access off. There's a handful of those issues that will need to be done in these next steps with the park. But yes, we do want to retain as much of that character. And that's where I kind of like telling that story through an interpretive sign and having some of those historic photographs and even a historic aerial of the site
yeah,
to, you know, educate people and the next generation about
the history.
what actually was going on here.
Yeah, that's great. I think that was it. I had another question, but it went out. Senior moment there, so.
You know where to find us.
That's
great.
But yeah, very, very nice, and we can't wait till, oh, do we have an estimate on how much the phase one is going to cost?
We do. We did a pre-design estimate, and it is just under, it's about 1.4, just over 1.4 million. And that's where Paula had mentioned we are anticipating going for a grant loan request of 700,000.
Right,
And then potentially there would be local funds of existing 250, and then potentially another 500,000 that would cover that.
okay,
And again, to follow up on that, and I know that's always a concern, these projects have to be built under the local public contracts bidding law. So there's a thing called prevailing wage rates that have to be paid, that is basically a union level of pay. So it does make things rather expensive to build. So everything that you see in these cost estimates in the park, it will be much more expensive than if you were able to hire a contractor to put in a small section of sidewalk to your house.
Oh, it's interesting.
Those prices can be 30 to 50% higher because of that.
thank you.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Janice.
Janice.
Thank you. Anyone else in the room? Sure you don't want to say something?
Anybody online?
Anyone online?
If there's anybody online that wants to speak on the Green Acres grant application, you can unmute yourself. Cindy,
Yes.
state your name, please, and
Cindy Taverna, 105 Mason Woods Lane. I just had a question on the overburden classification. Can you explain what that is?
try. I have the grant application here. I have to look it up. I just have here, municipality, a list that says municipalities that contain an overburdened community subject to adverse cumulative stressors. Note, project must be located in or be easily accessible from an overburdened community subject to adverse cumulative stressors to receive preferential funding terms. I don't have, let me see if there's a definitions in the front. There is. Here we go. Overburdened community, New Jersey's environmental justice law defines an overburdened community as any census block group as determined in accordance with the most recent United States Census, in which at least 35% of the households qualify as low-income households at or below twice the poverty threshold as determined by the Census Bureau, and/or at least 40% of the residents identify as minority or as members of a state-recognized tribal community, and/or at least 40% of the households have limited English proficiency without an adult that speaks English very well, according to the United States Census Bureau. Overburdened community.
I'm sorry.
So, also previously referred to as an adversely stressed OBC, this is an overburdened community with a combined stressor total higher than the 50th percentile for total environmental and public health stressors. Easily accessible from an ACS OBC less than a quarter mile away with no barriers to pedestrian access. Barriers include impediments to people walking to the site, such as highways or impassable waterways. Pedestrian access distance is measured not as the crow flies, but by using GIS to follow the roads. So it seems to be very specific, and I know that area at one point was within a census block group. That is how we've received community development block grants in the past.
And this is not a determination that is made locally, this is based on mapping
State,
that is
yeah.
provided by the DEP. So this actually benefits us.
Right.
It was not a determination that was evaluated or made locally.
So it could be any of those things you described.
Correct.
So nobody really knows there? Like, who would have the answer to that question? Like, how are we, Kingsport, an overburdened community?
Well, not,
Someone at DEP would have that answer, they may be able to help you with that.
right. And
Okay.
it doesn't necessarily mean the entire town, it could just be that that particular, well, no, it would be the entire town, they identified all of Kingsport. Yep.
Yeah, I'm just curious, like, you know,
Sure.
it's just curiosity. I was just curious, like, when that was determined and, you know, all of that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Anyone else? No?
No.
Do we, what do we have to do now?
No one else is unmuting, so.
So you do need to formally close the public hearing on this matter?
Okay, so I hereby formally close the public hearing on the Green Acres Development Grant application.
And rather really than waiting till you get to that part of the agenda, you already added Resolution 2024-45-1 as number H under resolutions.
Yes.
If you wish, you may just go ahead and entertain a motion to adopt that.
I'd like to make a motion that we adopt
I'll second that.
this.
Mr. Montgomery?
Yes.
Mrs. Evans?
Yes.
Mrs. Torti?
Yes.
Mayor Gilmore?
Yes. Okay.
We have ordinances next. Is that-
No, we have comments from the public on agenda items.
Do we go back to that?
Now you go back to public comments.
Right,
On
so
agenda items only.
anyone in the room have any comments on agenda items? Not seeing any online? Nobody? Okay, so I will close comments from the public and go on to ordinances. first ordinance is 2024-1, amending Chapter 104 of the Code of the Township of Hainesport entitled Land Use. This is the public hearing and final adoption. So, does anybody have a comment in the room? Online?
Motion to close public comment, public hearing would be in order?
Okay, I have a motion to close public comment.
So moved?
Second?
Did we do
Yes.
Yeah.
a, aye?
Aye.
Okay,
Now you need to act on the ordinance.
pardon?
Now you need to act on the ordinance.
Now I need to act on the
So
order.
in other words, motion to adopt would be in order.
Okay, so can I have a motion to adopt the ordinance?
I will make that motion.
Second?
Yes.
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 Yes. Okay, ordinance 2024-2, amending Chapter 44 of the Code of Township of Hainesport entitled Affordable Housing. This is the first reading and introduction only.
If the committee introduces this, it will then go to the planning board for master plan consistency at their meeting and return to you at the February 12th, 13th?
13.
13th meeting for a public hearing.
Okay, so we just need a
Motion to
motion
introduce
to,
on first
Make a
reading.
motion that we move this to the planning board?
Well, motion to introduce on, for adopt on first reading.
So moved?
Second?
Yes.
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 yes. Okay, resolutions. There are no consent resolutions. Resolution 2024-38-1, approving the firefighter into the New Jersey State Firemen's Association. I believe that is Megan Longtalk.
I'll make that motion.
I will second it and applaud Ms. Lontalk for moving forward with this. Thank you.
Yes.
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 Yes. So, Resolution 2024-39-1 is also authorizing a raffle license to the Ladies Fire and EMS Auxiliary. At the same time, I would like to request that we waive the municipal fees on this raffle.
Do we have to do one at a time, or can I make a motion for both, John? Or are
It's
there
one resolution, isn't it?
two separate?
Yeah, it's one
things?
resolution.
One resolution.
And you're waiving them for both entities or one?
It's one
You can only move it for
application.
the application fee to the township. You can't,
But you asked a question about can you do both? What did you mean?
I guess the one was the resolution, and the other one was to waive the.
No, you can
fee,
adopt the resolution with that provided.
Which that provided, okay. I'd like to make that motion.
I'll second it.
Yes.
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 Yes. Resolution 2024-40-1, adopting an affirmative marketing plan for the Township of Hainesport.
I'll make that motion.
Second?
Yes.
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 Yes. Resolution 2024-41-1, accepting a housing element and fair share plan to satisfy the township's third round of affordable housing obligation as adopted by the Hainesport Township Joint Land Use Board. I have a motion and a second.
So moved?
Second?
Yes.
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 Yes. Resolution 2024-42-1, adopting the 2024 Affordable Housing Spending Plan. I need,
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Yes.
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 yes. Resolution 2024-43-1, regarding any shortfalls associated with the provision of affordable housing as set forth in the township's third round of housing element and fair share plan. A motion and a second.
I'll make a motion.
You have a second? I'll second. Yes.
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 Resolution 2024-44-1, adopting affordable assistance market to affordable program and for rental and for sale units operating manuals for the Township of Hainesport.
I'll make that motion.
I have a second?
Yes.
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 Yes. Okay, so we'll go on to business. Approval of the mobile home park licenses. We have two, 2024-1 and 2024-2.
So moved?
Second.
Yes.
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 Yes. Approval of charitable clothing bin licenses, 2024-1, 2, and 3.
Motion?
Second?
Yes.
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 Yes. Approval of video pinball licenses, 2024-1 and 2. Motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
Yes.
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 Yes. Okay, comments from the public. Anyone in the room? Absolutely.
Good evening, Mayor Gilmore, members of the committee. My name is Ms. Costco and all others present. My name is Joe Schuley. I live at 3 Elsinore Drive. Consider my comments a follow-on to what Mr. Levinson spoke about on the 12 December meeting concerning three concurrent resolutions that were then being considered in the State House. And these were resolutions to apply to the Congress of the United States for a Article 5 constitutional convention. And those three resolutions actually never were referred out of their respective committees in the Senate and the Assembly, and so there was no vote. They were reintroduced under new numbering in January, and so those present resolutions are Assembly Concurrent Resolution number 31, Senate Concurrent Resolution 35, and Senate Concurrent Resolution 15. I have a detailed sheet that goes into, in fact, several pieces of paper that I can distribute at the end of the meeting or at the end of my comments, as you see fit. But I just wanted to touch on a few of the things, some background, if you will, in terms of these resolutions. Up until December of 21, New Jersey had 6 outstanding applications to Congress for Article 5 conventions. And some of these dated to pre-Civil War and on up to the 1970s. These resolutions do not require the signature of the governor, and they will last forever once submitted from the legislature to the clerk of Congress. And so you say, well, you know, in these days, what's wrong with that? You know, should we, a lot of folks, especially the proponents, say, why shouldn't we have a constitutional convention to upgrade the Constitution? There are a number of attendant risks to that process because there's never been a constitutional convention in the United States. The Philadelphia Convention, some people refer to that as the Philadelphia Miracle of 1787, actually was to modify the Articles of Confederation. And the Constitution came out of that from those delegates not obeying their state mandates to go and just improve upon the Articles of Confederation. So a number of our founders had, you know, specific ideas that we needed a better government. Well, we got our Constitution. It's been amended 27 times, the first 10 of which we refer to as the Bill of Rights. The risks attendant to a present constitutional convention are many because of that precedent where states may submit a resolution for certain specific tasks, for instance, to have a balanced budget. But once the convention is convened, then all bets are off, because the convention delegates, who we don't know who they would be, have free rein to take those requests going in from the states and then just discard them and come out with a completely different constitution. And in the current state of affairs, current political climate in the country, we would run the risk of ever larger government and incursion on our liberties, individual liberties. So with that in mind, you may ask, well, what can we do about this? All right, it takes 2/3 of the states to propose the convention, 3/4 of the states to approve under the current guise, to approve what would come
Two-thirds
out.
to oppose?
Two-thirds to submit, 2/3 of the states, let me back up, 2/3 of the states would have to submit an application to Congress.
Okay,
And then if there are changes under the current Constitution, 3/4 of the states would have to ratify any changes.
okay,
But
thank you.
the convention can change the ground rules, just as was changed in 1787, when a unanimous consent of 13 colonies was changed to 9. And that's where the 2/3 or 3/4 actually came into play in terms of approval. So if you ask yourself, is this the right time for a constitutional convention? I would say the answer is no. Presently, there are a number of outstanding applications from various states to the Congress. All of our prior applications were rescinded in December of 2021. And this is not a partisan issue, it's not a Democrat or Republican issue, but previously Democrats were highly in favor of constitutional convention. They had, submitted these things, and Republicans as well. Now it's primarily being sponsored by Republicans. Again, for me, it's not a partisan issue, but I just wanted to have you be aware of that. There are probably about 17 co-sponsors on one of the current bills in the Assembly. So if you ask yourself, well, what can we do about it? Naturally, our primary effort is to, and I'm out of time.
Well, we'll ask you to please wrap it up.
Yeah, wrap it up.
Okay, thank you. We can write letters to our state legislators, all right? And as a body political, you may consider as Hainesport Township either a group letter to our state legislators in District 8 and to the committees, or consider a resolution as well, with all due legal protocols that would have to be measured to do that. So I thank you for your time.
Okay,
I have materials for you.
Thank you.
I appreciate the extra minute.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Appreciate your
I've never
hard
given a
work.
speech in the amount of time that I've had, and I just,
You can bring those, I can take those for you.
thank you.
Thanks.
Anyone else in the room want to give a comment? Anyone online still? Wish to talk? No? So I'll close public comment. Comments? From the administrator.
So I really don't have any formal comments, just simply because I reserved it all for the presentation, but I did want to, just for the good of the group, let everyone know that some of the other Burlington County towns that were identified by the state as that overburdened community include, just so that you get an idea, this is so widespread, Beverly City, Bordentown, Chesterfield, Fieldsboro, Burlington City, Burlington Township, Delanco, Delran, Edgewater, Park, Fieldsboro, I think I did say that. Sorry, these are kind of in alphabetical order. Hainsport, Maple Shade, Lumberton. So just at Palmyra Borough, just to give you an idea, at Riverside. So again, you know, like Scott said, I don't really know how this is established or how that's identified. West Hampton, and Willingboro, just a quick review.
There is a town in there that will go nameless, that I believe, over the last 3 years, has had the highest average assessed value on a single-family property in the county, and that's
Wow.
overburdened.
Yeah, that's how, I don't,
I think they throw a dart.
see language barrier, yeah, income,
Yeah.
availability.
So there's so many
transportation.
factors. Really doesn't have anything to do with economics. It's got to do with so many other things.
Right.
That's an interesting fact you just dropped there, John. Like, holy cow.
Yeah, I think the way that we
Yeah.
define things has multiple meanings.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
overburden doesn't necessarily mean economically.
Mr. Gillespie, comments?
I do not, I just want to actually congratulate the committee on adopting the legislation and the resolutions this evening. Any objections and comments were due last week to the Housing Element and Fair Share Plan. None were received, no objections. So hopefully the compliance hearing next week will go smoothly. We will deliver these to Judge Covert tomorrow. She's already been delivered 4 or 5 documents and a cover letter I sent her after the planning board meeting. So I believe that we are 100% done with everything we need to do, or pretty close to it.
So she'll have her final decision?
Yeah, I've already
next
drafted a
week,
judgment
or-
of compliance and repose that I've sent to the Attorney for Fair Share Housing to see if there are any changes they want to make, because I would like to submit that to the court in advance of the hearing, so she has a chance to look it over and make sure she's comfortable with it, because it's 3 pages long. But, keep your fingers crossed.
Will do.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Any comments from the planner? No? Okay.
Madam Mayor, so you can say chair.
I think that's in the list. Comments from the committee?
Oh, yes. Well, first of all, I would like to thank Scott Taylor for all the hard work. It's an amazing design. I'm very excited to get started on it. I represented Hainsport at the County Commissioners reorganization on the 4th of January. We also had our first Green Team meeting on the 16th, and we're very excited to put together our first submission. We don't expect to be suddenly automatically awarded the bronze certification, but we will get a lot of valuable feedback to carry forward. I bought a garden flag to represent our 100th anniversary, and I'd recommend that everyone in the town does that. They're only $20 from the township, and I picked up a stand off Amazon for just under $5, so very good way to represent our enthusiasm for our wonderful anniversary year. I'm also looking forward to attending the 100th anniversary dinner dance on the 16th of February, and I know that tickets are still available for that, so you can still get those. And finally, February is National Black History Month, so if you haven't been, I would recommend to everyone that you try to visit the Underground Railway Museum in Smithville Park. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Montgomery?
Oh, I go next, okay. Would also like to echo, great job, Scott Turner and his group. What did I just say? Scott Turner? I used to work with Scott Turner like about, I don't know, decades ago. Yeah.
You'll be hearing from him soon.
Obviously, I know you're Scott Taylor. Well, the funny thing is, I was just going to say, and the Turner Organization, and that didn't sound right, so I kind of bumbled a little bit. Thank you for correcting me. Okay, I'd like to thank Scott Taylor. Great job, awesome work, and everyone that was involved in it. Very excited about it, and excited about how we can, it looks like we're very creative ways on paying for all this, which was a huge interest and concern, so I'm happy about that. Happy about retaining the bald eagle habitat, if that's where it is, so hopefully we can coordinate that. I have participated as the liaison from the committee to the Hainesport Township Environmental Commission, and what a fabulous meeting, just very led by Janice Ludden, who had left earlier. Just some really great volunteers, dedicated, passionate about our environment, especially here in town, so enjoyed that. I also got a banner, and I have mine out in my lawn, and I can see Anna's and she can see mine, so it's very cool. And yeah, $20, it's great, very nice, great idea. And please support the various fundraisers we're having, and also looking forward to the dinner dance coming up. And great job, Paula, on these grants and all this other stuff you're doing. And Tara, I know you're involved in all this stuff as well, so thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Twardy.
Yes, I'd like to thank everybody for coming. It was nice to see you out tonight. And I also would like to commend Scott and his team. Excellent work. Looks really, really good. We're looking forward to it. Thank you, Paula, all of you. That's wonderful, wonderful. I would like to mention again the dinner dance on February 16th, and there are like 22 tickets, I believe, left, something like that. So if everybody would like to come, it'd be a great night out. I'd also like to mention our fashion show that's coming up on March 3rd. Our team has been working so hard. We have put hours and hours and hours. We have a great team, but we are going to have over 50 baskets, and we will have some luxury items, a bike, a television, Apple Watch, piece of jewelry. So we have some really, really nice donations. Our ads are coming in. The town has been so gracious in supporting, giving so much to the event, as well as some of our neighboring towns as well. So we appreciate everyone. We are still accepting ads, if you'd like to put an ad in the program. And the patron lines are $25. If the family would just like to say congratulations, Hainesport, from the Torty family or whatever, we'll put your name down in the book. It'll go down in history as being part of it. So we're very, very happy and excited for that. And the tickets are selling fast.
Yep.
So get your tickets in, if your request in for tickets to the township if you'd like to come. I also would like to say, Joe Shuley, thank you for your information again. And I would like to go on the record to say I am against this convention, and I have sent my letters in to Senator Tiber. So I think it's something that it really needs to be considered, because if you want a few people to come in and be able to change the Constitution, and you have to live by it, we have to stop that. That just cannot happen in our country. So thank you very much for Joe for taking the time for coming in this evening. And I think that's about it for tonight. So I'd like to say thank you. God bless you all. God bless Hainesport.
Indeed. Well, thank you, Scott. You know, I was there in 2017, get my feet wet, and saw the vision we first started to talk about. It's changed somewhat. We've learned a lot over the years, what we can't do, what we thought we could do. But I think there's still quite a bit of the original vision there. It's enough that it just overwhelms me, you know. But then again, I get overwhelmed.
You're well.
Paula knows.
Here we go.
You're well. You're well.
Paula, thank you so much for all the hard work.
Yeah.
Put forth. I mean, it's been me nagging you for the last 7 years, and just that look.
Not at all.
John, thank you so much for all the work you did with affordable housing. I mean, we really were in a place that we should not have been allowed to get to 7 years ago, and it's taken some time and a lot of negotiation, I know, and I personally can't thank you enough. I too bought a flag. Actually, I bought 7.
Yay.
They-
There any left?
Well, I bought 7. They now grace the entrance to the Glen at Masons Creek.
Nice.
And in front of my home. So, yes, that was done. In the meantime, I attended the Green Team kickoff meeting, and it did go very well, along with the Environmental Commission meeting. I thought they have a new leadership this year, and she's taken the reins and is going forward. And there's a lot of good projects, I think, in the future coming forward. And just thank you, everyone, for attending and keeping us safe, and let's pay some bills.
Could I just interject real quick? I did the math.
Absolutely.
I did the math.
Oh, she did the math.
I think it's important to put on the record what the cost would be over 20
There's no
years.
stopping her.
For the 500, it would be 535,500 with the 2%. It would be $26,750 bill each year that we would have to pay to Green Acres. So I think we'll be all right.
Good job
out
by
there.
you. Thank you.
Okay.
Get going. Thank you so much.
We do phase 2.
Exactly, that's what I'm looking.
Runs right into it.
I'm looking right at phase
It's
2.
strategery here.
Need a motion?
So with that, I think we can pay some bills.
Make a motion that we pay some
Please.
bills.
I'll second
Pay
that.
all the bills, not some, but all of them. Yes.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes. I have a motion to adjourn?
so moved.
Second?
Yes.
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 That's it.
Good night.